Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? I hope you're all well. Now, before we kick off with this webinar session, if anybody's got any sort of technical challenges in viewing this session at all, what I'd highly recommend is to go through the usual, I guess, kind of tech checks when something doesn't work for us first time around. So feel free just to refresh this YouTube page now if you are tuning in via a web browser on your laptop or desktop computer. Alternatively, if you are tuning in through a mobile device, feel free to come out of the YouTube app and then click back on the link that you received for this session. Hopefully everything should be working for you. Feel free to also grab yourself a pen and paper just so you can jot down some notes as we go along. Now, one thing to note with this webinar session is that live captioning is available. So if you did want to turn that feature on, you can do so by hovering onto this YouTube video, and you'll see the letters CC inside of a small square box. That is the icon for you to turn live captioning on, and if you click that again, that will turn it off as well. So feel free to kind of use that throughout the course of this session if you require so as well. Okay, so I hope everybody's all set. So welcome to this Google Digital Garage webinar session, all about how to find your balance with technology. My name is Rikesh, and I'm going to be your presenter, taking you through the course of this session, which is going to last for approximately 60 minutes. So I'll kick off first with just a little bit about me. So I'm a trainer for Google's digital skills program, Google Digital Garage. As well as that, I'm also a digital marketer. So I work with businesses to help them to create and grow an online presence in order to increase their visibility online. So as you can imagine, kind of the work that I tend to do, I do spend a lot of time with various devices, and something which has been rather important for me, especially over the last few years or so, kind of working more and more within this industry, is to actually find that kind of that balance, to actually find that kind of off switch to think, right, let me leave the devices alone for a while, let me actually just kind of spend some more kind of quality time, whether it be with friends or family, or do extracurricular activities outside of screen and outside of devices specifically as well. And we're going to be talking through kind of some tips and tools. Some of these I'll mention to you if I've kind of implemented them, or if I've had success with them as we go along. And it's always, when it comes to this sort of topic of find your balance technology, this is something that's very much kind of individualistic. We all kind of come at things from our very own experience in general. So that's just a little bit about me. I'd also like to introduce to you at this stage my colleague and fellow Google Digital Garage trainer, and that is Benedict. Now, Benedict, whilst you won't see Benedict on screen, you will see Benedict appearing in the live chat. Now, Benedict is going to be our chat moderator today. So you might have noticed on the right-hand side somewhere on your YouTube screen or page that there is a live chat box. That is your space over the course of this next hour to get involved, ask questions, and especially with this session, we're going to be kind of going through a lot of exercises as well. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, feel free to have a pen and paper on hand rather than a note-taking device, because I guess having a note-taking device may kind of defeat the purpose of this particular session. So have kind of a pen or paper or pencil or paper, just so you can kind of jot down notes and actually go through the exercises. And feel free to share your responses in the live chat as well. In order to type away in the live chat, you will simply just need to sign into a YouTube account. And once you've done that, you can type away and interact with both Benedict and myself. And I'd be grateful, as I'm sure Benedict will be grateful as well, to actually hear some of your tips and tools in terms of how you are finding your balance with technology, what's working for you as well. Because if something works for you, it's always nice to kind of share that around, because that might work for somebody else, it might not, but it's just useful to kind of share information, especially if it could be of potential benefit to somebody else. Now, this session that we're running today on Find Your Balance with Technology is one of many webinars that we actually run as part of the wider Google Digital Garage webinar offering. So if you have a look down below me where I'm pointing, you'll see that contained within the video description box is a link within one of the paragraphs, which will take you to the website where you can actually sign up for more Google Digital Garage webinars on a variety of topics. Now, you'll also find that you're able to actually undertake some online courses in order to kind of further your learning on certain webinar topics. And some of these courses are very useful in order to kind of either build out your knowledge or kind of learn a little bit more kind of context to some of the learnings from webinars that you've attended as well. There is a course called the Fundamentals of Digital Marketing course, which you'll find online, which is a course that has an added benefit and bonus in that once you complete that course, you'll actually receive a certificate from Google at no charge, recognizing that you've completed that course as well. So definitely check out all those resources on the Google Digital Garage website, respectively, as well. So without further ado, let's look at what we're covering in this session, all about how to find your balance with technology. So the way that we're going to be kind of breaking down this this session is that we're first of all going to be understanding what is digital well-being from a definition point of view. We're then going to be looking at what balance means for you. So this is where we're actually going to be going through some exercises. So if you haven't yet done so, feel free to have that pen and paper on hand. And then once we've kind of looked at kind of what balance means for us and kind of gone through a little bit about what kind of serves us and what doesn't necessarily serve us at certain times when we're using our technology devices, we're then going to go into some of the tips and tools that you can maybe implement in order for you to have a better balance with your technology devices that you own as well. And then once we've done that, we're then going to be kind of taking things on a little bit further with those tips and tools that we've looked at and actually looking at how we can effectively apply them in such a manner that we're actually doing these tips and tools on a regular basis. And when we actually do something on a regular basis, we start to form habits. And that's the level that we want to get to. So we're going to be kind of looking at kind of the blueprint of getting there as well. So first of all, let's kick off this session by understanding what is digital well-being. What do we mean by that phrase, digital well-being? Well, before we actually look at the definition of digital well-being, let's take out the word digital for a moment and let's look at kind of the definition of well-being. Now, you'll probably find lots of different definitions of the word well-being, but the one that I've kind of come to understand the most is well-being is where you are in a state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. Now, that's probably one out of many definitions, but they all kind of touch upon the same kind of lines and kind of phraseology, I guess, as well. So that's what we mean by well-being. So if we add the word digital back in and actually have a look at digital well-being, what that means. So definition-wise, digital well-being is a state of being comfortable and content with how technology fits into your life. So that's what digital well-being means. And you can see that's kind of slightly altered from the well-being definition there as well, where it kind of incorporates how we feel about our technology usage as well. And you can see digital well-being is different for everyone. So digital well-being for me is going to be different to digital well-being for Benedict. It's going to be different well-being for you as well. So the main kind of objective when it comes to understanding digital well-being is not just a definition, but we want to kind of feel digital well-being rather than just understand what it means. So you can see digital well-being is when we have that feeling that we are aware and in control of the technology that we use. So we want to kind of, in order for us to kind of say, right, yeah, I've actually got good digital well-being. You want to be able to feel that you're aware of the technology that's around you, that you use on a regular basis, and that you are in control of that technology rather than that technology controlling you. So that's what we mean by digital well-being. And you can see here, digital well-being is all about having a balanced relationship with technology. So it's not about, right, I spend way too much time on my smartphone. Right, that's it. I'm going to chuck my smartphone out the window. It's not about that, or locking your phones away for hours on end just because you use it so often. It's about having that right sort of balance, because we all are aware that technology has its benefits. And it's very useful. Something that we'll look at when we cover how technology can add value to our lives. But what we want to kind of get to, the stage that we want to get to, is we want to make sure that we are using technology when we want to and when we feel that it kind of serves us, and then making sure that we kind of catch ourselves in moments where we feel that maybe technology is kind of controlling us as well. And this is something which takes time. It's an approach. I know I kind of started, I guess, my digital well-being journey probably about kind of 3 or 4 years ago, because I was aware that I was spending way too much time on screen. So I thought, oh, how do I kind of scale this back? And over time, I've developed kind of various kind of tools and mechanisms in order for me to kind of control how my relationship is with technology as well. So let's have a look at what balance means for you. And the key word there is you, because as I've said since the start of this session, this is going to very much be kind of an introspective type of webinar session, because we all have different experiences with technology. We all have different uses with technology as well, depending on the type of work that we do in general as well. So if you haven't yet done so, grab yourself a pen, grab yourself some paper, and I'd love for you to kind of write down your thoughts as we go along to some of the things that you will see here on the screen, because we're going to be going through a bit of a reflection first up, and we're going to reflect upon our relationship with devices right now, as of today. So what I want you to do first and foremost is, just on one side of your sheet of paper that you've got there, I want you to actually answer this question of, what do you use your devices for? Now, that question actually seems rather sort of abstract and can be open-ended. So what I want you to do is, I want you to think of a device that you probably use the most in the last 24 to 48 hours. Now, for me, it's going to be my smartphone. For you, it might very well be the same. It does very much kind of appear that we live in a mobile-first world, and our smartphone is the device where we can do a lot of things, and it's portable, etc. as well. So that's what I'm going to kind of use, I guess, device-wise here, in terms of what did I use my smartphone for over the last 24 to 48 hours. And I want you to write down a list. I'm sure you will have a long list, because I definitely do, of things that I've used my smartphone for over the last 24 to 48 hours. So just jot these down kind of line by line. So for example, for myself, I've used my smartphone for driving directions. I've used it for taking photos. I've used it for taking videos. I've used it for video calling with friends, family, etc. as well. I've used it for taking down notes. I've used it for organizing my calendar. I've used it for fitness as well. I've used a fitness app as well. So I've used it for multiple different things. I'm sure many of you have some. I'm sure Benedict will probably agree that you've been using your smartphone over the last 24 to 48 hours for various different things as well. And what I want you to also do with this question that you can see of what do we use our kind of, I guess, our primary device over the last 24 to 48 hours for, I want you to kind of think about these other two kind of, I guess, qualifying or clarifying kind of questions of, what do you spend a lot of time doing in general? And you might kind of find a trend. Or what do you spend very little time doing as well? Just something to kind of think of as you're kind of still jotting down all these different things that you use your smartphone for. I know I've used my smartphone for checking social media, for interacting on social media as well, just kind of various different things, even kind of checking the weather app as well to see how warm it's going to be today. I've used my smartphone for various different things. So hopefully you would have kind of written down quite a decent list of things that you've used your device for over the last 24 to 48 hours. So now that you've done that, what I want you to then do is, with that list, I want you to kind of have that page kind of next to you, and ideally kind of have a second page, a second piece of paper. And what I want you to do is, I want you to draw a line straight down the middle so that you have two columns. And I want us to focus on the first column, on the left-hand side column, let's say, because what I want you to now do is, looking at that list of the things that you've just used your smartphone for example, over the last 24 to 48 hours, I want you to actually pick out and write down on the left-hand side column which of these things, which of these actions that you've taken with that device has added the most value to your life, has actually done something in a positive light, let's say, for you, and has actually kind of has actually benefited you, let's say. So, for example, for myself, I've used video calling on my smartphone to keep in touch with family, which has been useful to stay connected with loved ones. I've also used driving directions, which has actually helped me to save time in order for me to get to my destination, and also ensure that I don't get lost. Especially when I do take maybe the wrong road sign if I was doing it without a sat nav app. I've also used my smartphone the last 24 hours to work out. I've got a fitness app that helps me kind of keep in shape as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at here when kind of technology adds value to your life. I've used the weather just so I know, right, okay, do I need to put any sun lotion on today because it's going to be a bit of a heat wave here in the UK? What do we need to what do I need to kind of wear appropriately as well? So that's kind of where technology for me adds value. So hopefully you would have kind of picked out some of those answers, and feel free to kind of share in the live chat. Both myself and Benedict would love to kind of hear some of the ways in which your devices help add value to your life as well. I'd love to kind of hear Benedict's as well when technology kind of adds value to your life. So feel free to kind of share in the chat as well, Benedict, because we all have kind of different things in terms of the way that these devices, whether it be smartphones, whether it be tablets, whether it be desktop computers, laptops, where they kind of add value to as well. And it's different for everyone because we all use technology in different ways and for different purposes as well. So with that in mind, you might have kind of noticed that we've got one column that's free where there's no writing yet, which is the right-hand side column. So we've talked about kind of where technology adds the most value. Now, what I want you to do with the right-hand side column is pick out from that same list that you had of things that you've done over the last 24 to 48 hours on your device. And now I want you to kind of answer here this question, which says, when does technology add the least amount of value to your life? Where does it kind of take away from you, from maybe something that you want to do, which is a bit more productive? Or something that might kind of make you feel a bit anxious or make you feel a bit alone or feel a little bit kind of lazy, for example, as well. That kind of brings on those feelings. What kind of actions have you done over the last 24 to 48 hours on here as well? So some examples can include where you get kind of notifications that kind of come through when you're doing a particular task, when you are maybe reading a book or reading kind of an ebook on your device, and you get a notification pop up saying, oh, so and so has actually messaged you. And that's kind of the time that you actually dedicated toward reading, but then you get a notification that pops up. Well, that's something which actually takes value away from you, and then maybe you kind of lose track of the part of the ebook that you're reading, and then it makes you kind of think, oh, let me just have a quick check on that message, and then I'll come back to it. And it kind of interrupts your flow there as well. It could be where technology kind of takes away from us. It could be that when we kind of get home from work, we've had some food, we kind of sit down and we've got a television show that we really want to watch or a movie that we really want to watch. But what we end up doing whilst we're watching a television program is that we've got our smartphone there while we're on the sofa and we're just mindlessly scrolling through social media. And that's something that kind of takes away from us because we're not really giving our wholehearted kind of attention and concentration to the television program that we actually put on because we want to watch it and we're interested in it as well, because our attention span has actually been taken away through our device there as well. Or it could well be that we kind of spend a little bit too much time playing video games or online games when maybe we could have been using that time or part of that time a bit more kind of productively for us as well. And this is kind of this is just for us to kind of assess because we might have felt this in time. I know I definitely have, where I've kind of played video games for a couple of hours on end and I'm like, yeah, maybe I could have done something a little bit more productive. But then I do also appreciate from kind of the other flip side, which is that sometimes it's nice to kind of do things which doesn't really require that much brain power, and you can just be a little bit more kind of relaxed, and just kind of use, playing something like video games or mindlessly scrolling through social media just as a little bit of a kind of a little bit of decompression, especially if you've had kind of a busy day, as well. So wanted to kind of jot these down as well, and hopefully you should have something in both the left and the right hand side columns now. So with that in mind, let's actually reveal where kind of the most popular times where technology adds the most type of value to us in general. And these are actually findings from the Pew Research Center. So this is just kind of a sample size of what people answered to that question of when technology has the most value to us. So you can see here, staying connected through messaging, through video calls, sending photos through as well, sending videos through, self-improvement as well. Absolutely, that's kind of that's something which definitely kind of adds value, and it sure adds value for me. As I mentioned, I have a fitness app that I use, but are there other kind of fitness and health tools that you have on your devices? Do you have like a smartwatch which kind of tells you, how many steps you've done in a day, how many calories you've burnt, for example? How many times you kind of stood up, for example, as well? Do you use kind of meditation apps? So you're able to kind of maybe take yourself out of a very busy day and actually take time to actually unwind a little bit and actually center your breathing. All that kind of self-improvement can be useful. Books, music, TV as well, to help to kind of educate us and provide us with more knowledge on a specific topic. As well, think about kind of educational content. I know I tend to go to YouTube quite a lot to learn educational content, whether it be around my industry that I'm in or other industries as well, which is kind of nice. And that's where technology does add value. Or whether you're kind of reading kind of news, magazines, etc. And also for productivity, this is something which technology always helped me out with, is with productivity. So setting reminders, setting tasks, jotting down notes, emails as well, being able to respond to kind of emails, especially emails that are more of a priority for you to respond to. You can do that on the go with a smartphone, for example, as well. Now, so these are just kind of a sample, according to kind of the Pew Research Center, of kind of what people mostly kind of talked about in terms of where technology kind of has kind of a positive effect on their lives as well. Now, on the flip side, let's have a look at the research findings where technology, you can see here, can go wrong or just kind of takes away value from you. So you can see here when we aren't intentional with our time. So this is where we're kind of spending more time than we intended on social media or watching YouTube videos or through gaming, when we could have maybe have been doing something else. So that's where we are just kind of letting time drift a little bit. Technology can go wrong where we kind of let it disrupt our sleep as well. So this is where we're kind of looking at our devices either just before going to bed, or we get a notification that pops up on our phone, on our bedside table, and then it's like, oh yeah, go on, let me have a look at that. Let me have a look at that WhatsApp and see who's messaged right now about what. And it's something which we don't really have to concern ourselves with as well, but it does disrupt our sleep, and that's something that's where technology is kind of taking away from us as well. And also, you can see here when we let technology and devices impact relationships as well. I'm sure some of you have actually had this kind of scenario, because I've had this on many occasions. So if you've ever been out for kind of dinner, you've gone to a restaurant and you sat down with whoever you've gone out for dinner with, friends or family, and you kind of sat there, you're having a bit of a conversation, and something which naturally kind of catches your attention is, oh, who are the tables around you? Who are the people around you? If you're kind of having a conversation as well with the people that you are on the table with. But you might kind of look over. I've seen this when I'm kind of looking over at other tables, and typically you'll kind of see, let's say, two people that come to the restaurant, they sit down, they have a little bit of a chat, they get the menu, they have a little bit of a conversation about the menu. The waiting staff come over, take the order, and then one person, while they're waiting, will maybe take out their phone and just like, oh yeah, I just got to check this message. They'll check the message, but then they'll just stay on their phone. They'll just stay glued on the phone. Either they're swiping, having a look at their social media, or doing whatever they might be. It might be answering urgent emails, for example, as well. And then the other person just thinks, oh, maybe it's a bit of free reign for me to then take out my smartphone. And then before you know it, these two people who are out for a sociable meal and a dinner are both on their smartphones, which is probably something that both of them could have been doing when they're on the sofa, really. And it kind of detracts from actually having that kind of that face-to-face conversation, that in-person conversation. I'm sure many of us have kind of felt that over the last few years or so, with kind of the rise in kind of video calls, to, you know, constantly be having to look through kind of a webcam lens as opposed to actually looking at somebody in the eye, through kind of face-to-face conversations. And this is where kind of you can see from the research findings, this is another thing that where technology can maybe has kind of detracted from kind of giving us value, because we let it kind of impact relationships as well. So that's just something to be kind of aware of. And as we're kind of going through all of this, you might be kind of nodding and agreeing. You might be thinking, yep, I might have done this. I'm as guilty as anyone of kind of doing that, especially at a restaurant as well. And it's something where I try and catch myself these days as well. And then I think, oh yeah, let me put my phone away, or let me put it on a do not disturb mode, for instance, as well. And it's something which I think many of us have become more attuned to. We are aware, or we are becoming more aware of our technology habits. You can see here that 29% of adults across EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa, are concerned about the negative impacts of their own technology usage. So we are kind of aware, and we are kind of we kind of feel that, yeah, you know what, something's not quite right here. And you can see over half of those 29% of adults feel that they actually want to change at least one technology behavior, or improve that behavior as well, in order for them to have the right balance with their technology as well. So it's important for us to, first of all, identify, and I'm sure many of you who are tuning in for this webinar session have come so because you are maybe aware of that fact. You think, yeah, I actually want to find a better balance with my relationship with technology as well. So hopefully you're in the right place for that when we come on to kind of the tips and tools as well. Now, the ideal place, before we actually go on to tips and tools, the ideal place that we actually want to get to is we want to be in control of the technology that surrounds us in our life, rather than the other way around. We don't want technology to dictate when we use it. We want to be purposeful. We also want to be intentional when we use our devices. And as I mentioned earlier on, even if it's things like kind of online gaming, which even I like to do, you might just think, oh, maybe I should put that in the category solely of it doesn't add value to my life. Because again, we want to find the right balance, because even kind of video gaming or watching hours upon hours of YouTube videos on end, or browsing through social media can have its benefits as well. Sometimes, as I mentioned, it is good to kind of decompress and do something which is not necessarily always intentional, not always purposeful. But at the end, kind of the end goal here is we want our balance with relationship, balance and kind of relationship with technology to have a net positive impact. So we want to basically be doing more positive things than kind of the things that kind of detract away from what we want to achieve with our technology devices as well. So there is room there for us to do things which we don't necessarily have to be intentional or purposeful with as well. Or we can be intentional and purposeful with those things, and just think, oh yeah, I'm going to play an hour of video games because I just want to kind of enjoy the video game, understand it. I want to kind of just have a bit of fun, and actually it'll take my mind off some other things that I've got to think about for the rest of my day, and then I can get back to it afterwards as well. So that's kind of where we want to be as well. So something that will actually help us to get there, to kind of get that net positive impact and be purposeful, be more intentional with our usage, and be in control of the technology that surrounds us, is by setting ourselves a goal. Setting ourselves an objective of what do we want to achieve by having this kind of better balance with technology. So you can see some examples here on screen. I'd love for you to kind of write down maybe one or two of your goals, And feel free to kind of share this in the live chat for both myself and Benedict. Would you like to spend more time with your family? Is that what you're looking to do? Are you looking to have higher efficiency, higher output at work? Are you looking to kind of maybe feel less kind of scattered, or kind of have less brain fog and kind of feel more kind of focused with the tasks that you have to do on a day-to-day basis? What are you looking to achieve? And I appreciate that this is something that can be a bit of a challenge to actually think of your goal, especially if it's the first time that you've kind of had to think about this before in terms of what do I want to get from having a better balance with technology. And this is something that you're more than welcome after we've concluded this session to actually, you can actually kind of further clarify your goal going forward as well. And then we can look to apply those tips and tools. Now, before we go into some of the tips and tools, I'd love to just check in, see if there's any sort of comments or questions. I can't see any comments or questions at this stage. If there are any, feel free to use the live chat. As I mentioned, the live chat is there for your benefit. Drop in your comments, drop in some of your answers to some of the exercises that we went through of where technology adds most value to you, where it adds the least value to you. What are your goals? What are you looking to kind of get out of having a better balance with technology as well? So feel free to kind of use that live chat. So I'm sure that Benedict would love to hear from you, and I'd love to kind of read out some of yours as well as time goes along. Okay, so let's now have a look at some of the tips and tools that exist out there for achieving a better balance with technology. And as we go through these tips and tools, in turn, don't feel obliged that you have to implement all of them. Because that can seem quite overwhelming. Some of these might kind of jump out to you more than others, and they're probably the ones that you maybe want to consider implementing very gradually as well. Now, before we go into some of the tips and tools, we first of all just want to understand a little bit about where we kind of make these decisions about our balance with technology, which is from our brains. So you can see here, our brains try to take as many shortcuts as possible. And that's true, right? Because our brains are memory optimizing machines, right? They are designed to save as much time and as much kind of effort and resources of that brain for more kind of established, more strenuous kind of tasks, or more strenuous kind of thinking that we must do. And that's where our brain actually creates shortcut loops for kind of more of the mundane tasks that we may do on a day-to-day basis. So this is kind of a mental shortcut loop example. And this is what our brain does to a lot of different tasks. So let's use a task of brushing our teeth. So we have our stimulus, which is, right, we wake up in the morning and we have fuzzy teeth. And it's like, okay. So our brain doesn't even have to think about this anymore, because what we tend to do is we'll go to the bathroom and we will brush our teeth so that we have clean teeth in the morning. And that's the shortcut that our brain kind of defaults to. If you think about kind of our brain and thinking, which kind of shortcut CD do I need to put into the drive, into my brain drive? This is the shortcut CD that I need to put into my brain drive, which is, right, I must get up and go to the bathroom and actually brush my teeth. And this is something which we nowadays, when we actually have created these shortcut loops, we don't even realize that this is what we did throughout the day. I know I used to actually feel this quite a few times a number of years ago, when I used to have a 45-minute driving commute to a workplace, that I would often think, when I'm getting close to the workplace, I'd think, how did I get here this morning? Because I just literally couldn't even remember the journey. I couldn't even remember half of kind of the route and the journey that I took to get here. Couldn't really remember. All I remember is kind of just waking up, and then I don't remember the rest. Kind of, brushing my teeth, jumping in the shower, having a bit of breakfast, and then heading out for the day. I don't remember any of that, because we've created shortcut loops for that, because then our brain can actually create space in order for more kind of critical thinking, for example, as well. Now, this kind of shortcut, this kind of mental shortcut loop that our brain creates is something known as heuristic thinking. So if you do want to kind of check this out, or kind of look at more YouTube videos and kind of find out a little bit more information about this, feel free to kind of do so. For me, it's really kind of fascinating, kind of learning a bit more about kind of our minds as well. But essentially, our brain kind of puts a lot of tasks on autopilot so that it can save space for the more kind of arduous tasks that may kind of crop up for us as well. So with that in mind, with that knowledge as well of our brain kind of creating these mental shortcuts and these loops, let's have a look at some tips and tools for creating a better balance with some of the technology devices as well, because those mental shortcuts, we do that with our phones as well. So some of you might have actually experienced a mental shortcut loop with your smartphone, because I definitely have come from the school of I've definitely experienced this myself, and I've worked on actually breaking that habit and actually creating more kind of healthier habits with my smartphone. But in terms of kind of mental shortcut loops that I'd created, one of them was actually I'd whether it be first thing waking up in the morning or later on in the day or certain points in the day, I would jump on to my smartphone, I'd unlock it, I'd then actually go on to one of the social media apps that I have. I click onto that, see what the updates are, have a bit of a scroll there, check out some of the notifications if I have any, come out of that app, go into another social media app, and I kind of go in a bit of an order, about 2 or 3 different apps, and I go into a bit of an order, check notifications, interact with some posts and stories, etc., and then go into the next app, and then so on and so forth as well. And that's a mental shortcut that my brain kind of took, and it took me a while to actually then catch myself in the moment to think, oh, this is something which doesn't really serve me, but has become habitual within me as well, and I actually want to change that behavior. So that's when I kind of implement some of the tips and tools. Some of these we will actually be going through, because what we want to do with these tips and tools is we want to essentially create good routines off the back of these tips and tools. We want to be and feel more in control of technology and how that serves us, ensuring that it does serve us more than it kind of takes away from us. We want to make space for some screen-free time in general within our lives, and we want to make sure that we are being more focused at work as well. So let's have a look at kind of creating good routines first of all. So one thing that we can do first of all, straight off the bat, without really having to do much, is to observe what we are doing currently, because that gives us kind of a base point. If we kind of think of this as a bit of kind of like a scientific experiment, in order for us to see results, we need to know where we've come from. We need to know kind of the base level, and then we can see kind of the results off the back of kind of implementing some tips and tools. So one kind of observation that you can carry out from today onwards, for example, is or from tomorrow, you can actually have a pen and paper, which you have beside your bed. And then that pen and paper is something which you carry around for the rest of the day. Because what I want you to do, if you're able to do so, is to just tally up how many times do you pick up your smartphone, for example, or other device that you use very, very frequently. So just kind of tally that up. How often do you actually pick it up? So when you pick it up in the morning, okay, even just to stop the alarm that you've got on your smartphone, that's one. And then so on and so forth. You might check it for social media, you might check it for weather, you might check it for this, you might check it for that. So observe your habits as well. Now, in terms of kind of checking how many times you pick up your smartphone device, that is something that you can actually check directly within your settings of your smartphone. But then it kind of defeats the purpose of you picking up and kind of actually observing your habit of how many times you pick up your smartphone as well. So this is why I mentioned kind of have a pen and paper and just tally that up accordingly as well. Now, one thing that you can do with your smartphone is to track and limit your app usage. So if you use a certain app or certain apps very frequently, and it's something which you don't want to be spending as much time on them, you can actually set yourself limits and blocks for them as well. So this applies regardless of whether you have an Android device or whether you have an iOS device. So if you have an Android device, you can actually go into the digital well-being part of the settings and actually manually select individual apps and actually select how long you are going to be spending on a social media app, for example. And then after that, you'll get a notification saying, oh, your time's up for the day, that you've spent 5 minutes, for example, and that's it. Now, you can obviously override this, but it's just there as another kind of deterrent to say you spent maybe too much and kind of enough time on this particular app as well. So that's kind of what you can do is kind of set the app limits. So if you go into digital well-being settings, if you've got an Android device, and if you go into screen time settings, if you've got an iOS device, you'll be able to kind of set your app usage from there as well. Now, something that you can also do is do some spring cleaning. So that doesn't necessarily mean cleaning your devices. So getting out the feather duster and just kind of cleaning them, which is always a good idea, I guess, with devices, the amount of times we spend on them and kind of fingerprints, etc. But what I mean by spring cleaning is kind of maybe deleting apps that we don't necessarily use on our smartphones. So every so often, maybe 6 months or once a year, just kind of have a bit of a spring clean. Just get rid of apps that don't necessarily serve us. It might actually also help from a point of storage on our smartphone. But more so than anything, we're actually decluttering the apps that are on our smartphone as well. Now, something that we can also do in conjunction with that is maybe there are certain apps that you use once in a blue moon, but you don't want to delete them because you might dip into them every so often. Maybe kind of parking apps or hotel apps or flight apps, if you're looking to kind of go away, etc. Then you can still have those apps on your phone, but you don't necessarily have to have them visible on any of your kind of your front screen, your home screens. And most devices these days allow you to fully customize your home screen so that you only have the apps showing on your main screens that you want showing, and the rest are kind of just hidden away. And if you want to call upon them, you can do afterwards as well. Now, in terms of being more in control with technology, some of the tips and tools include putting your devices to bed. That doesn't necessarily mean tucking them in right next to you on the pillow. If anything, you actually want to kind of create as much distance between you and your smartphone, especially when you are going to bed. The best way to do that is actually to use the Do Not Disturb setting, or create a sleep schedule on your smartphone so that your phone actually goes into some sort of a Do Not Disturb sleep mode between the hours of 11 and 6, for example, if that's what you've set. So you can sort of create that Do Not Disturb mode so that you only get certain notifications. Now, if you think, oh yeah, but what if there's an emergency and I definitely need someone to get through to me as well? So you can allow for things like repeat callers. If they're ringing more than once, then that will then set your phone off to actually ring. For example, as well. So there's a lot of customization available across our devices as well. We can also use voice to control usage. So that will kind of a lot of the times that can actually help, rather than us picking our phone up or jumping onto our laptop or looking at our tablet for certain information. We can actually just use voice. So many of us may own kind of smart home devices. Like for instance, myself, sometimes I will kind of use my Google Nest to actually ask, what the time is, or what's the answer to a maths equation. And it's very quick and easy to do. You can say, okay, Google, tell me the answer to this sum, or tell me what the weather's like here, or tell me what the weather's like there. All these kind of questions. And what we're doing with that, by using a voice assistant and kind of a separate kind of device, which we can't necessarily kind of interact in the usual way, that's kind of doing the work, and that's allowing for us to have less screen time as well, and creating a better balance for us as well in terms of how often we are using our devices as well. Meditation apps are also great for being kind of feeling more in control. We can kind of center ourselves. We can do some of the deep breathing meditations as well. There's lots of meditation apps out there. I've tried a couple myself. I've used Calm app before. The one that I've been using for a long time, and I still use it to this day, is one called Insight Timer. But there's lots and lots out there to check out. You can also do this if you use your laptop quite frequently as well. So if you, for instance, if you use the Google Chrome browser, you can actually download an extension called the Mindful Break, where you can actually set kind of a bit of a stopwatch time limit for how long you are maybe just going to sit there, close your eyes, and do a bit of deep breathing for kind of 2-3 minutes before you get on with the tasks of your day as well. So that's something else to kind of consider, and to kind of consider some of the meditation apps. Some are there kind of which are paid for apps. Some are there which are free or free up to a certain point, such as Insight Timer. But then it also has a premium option that you may wish to upgrade to if you want to. If not, you can just kind of use the free meditations that are available on the various apps as well. Now, some tips and tools for making space for some tech-free time is just to be present with others. Just to leave that phone in your pocket when you're out, kind of meeting up with friends or family. It might be that you've got kind of a smart watch which kind of links through with notifications, so you can just kind of flick up your wrist and actually have a look at what notifications come through, and do I need to reply to that right now? If it's not important, that's fine, leave my phone in my pocket. But something which really kind of adds value to our lives is when we're really present in the moment with somebody, rather than thinking ahead or thinking, oh, I've got to do this, got to do that, I've got to remind on my phone to do this, that, and I've got to constantly checking all of this as well on my devices. And something else that kind of leads on from that, when we're being present with others, is enjoying the gift of JOMO. So you might have heard of FOMO, the fear of missing out. So JOMO is the joy of missing out. And this is something which, in order to kind of really understand it, you have to experience it yourself. And this is something which I did a number of years ago now, where I actually took myself off social media for, or kind of checking social media for about kind of 6 months or so. And the beauty was, when I then met up with a friend, or I met up with a family member, I was able to have a really good conversation with them, more kind of a very deep and meaningful conversation, because they were able to tell me what they've been up to over a certain period of time, and I was able to do the same. And that was because we weren't necessarily posting anything online to say we're doing this or we're doing that. And it was just nice to kind of just be present in that moment, be present in that conversation there as well. So that's something definitely kind of to consider as a tip and tool as well. And also from a creativity point of view, just having more tech-free time and screen-free time can help your mind to wander as well. You can kind of maybe daydream and kind of think of different things. It might kind of spark a little bit of creativity within you as well. So that's kind of a few tips to consider there as well. Now, in terms of kind of being more focused at work, one of the best kind of ways in which we can be more focused at work is to manage which notifications that you have turned on and which ones that you do not. So that is definitely something to consider there as well. So you can actually on various smartphones these days, you can actually set up various focus modes as well, so that you can have a mode for work, and you can ensure that that's toggled on from the hours of 10 till 6, for example. Whatever your work hours are, you can have that toggled on so that you have a different screen. You only have notifications that are coming through from work apps that you have, for example, or you have notifications from your nearest and dearest, where you feel that it's important to get those notifications through straight forward there and then. You might have certain kind of emails come through, but then other than that, other notifications, you won't get them coming through until you actually kind of finish work, or it's gone past a certain time. You can set up that sort of schedule as well. So that's something to consider when it comes to managing your notifications, and when you see information coming through on your device as well. Putting your phone out of sight, out of mind. You can do this with other devices, I guess. So if you really feel that you can't kind of trust yourself, I guess, with your device, then you can kind of put it away, put it in a drawer, put it in another office, in another workspace. If you're working from home, you can put it in another room as well. So that's something to consider. Maybe lock it up and ensure that you're able to kind of really create that deterrent of not actually checking that device as well. And something else that we can actually do is create boundaries when it comes to being focused at work. So disconnect at certain points in time and set kind of an out of office reply. It could even be that you set an out of office auto reply when you are doing 2 hours worth of focused work, and be like, right, I'll get back to you. I'll see this email within 2 hours. If it's anything important, please ring me, or something like that. You can have those kind of have those kind of messages, because then you are telling people, you're setting your boundary out to say, right, this is my time to focus. This is my time to do and kind of work on something which I want to spend time focusing on as well. So they're just kind of a few tips and tools for that as well. And that's just kind of an overview of all those tips and tools. Hopefully you've jotted kind of a few of these down, maybe 3 or 4, if not more. But don't feel you have to kind of implement them all, because you essentially will find your own kind of balance with technology, as we all tend to do a lot of the times through kind of trial and error as well. I think that that kind of comes to fruition through that as well. So with that in mind, let's have a check in with any questions or comments. I can't see any questions at this stage. If there are any questions, any comments, if you'd like to kind of share what sort of tips and tools that have worked for you, feel free to pop them in the chat. And myself and Benedict will be able to kind of provide our thoughts on them as we go along as well. So now that we've kind of spoken about some of the tips and tools that exist out there, and more that you might have, and more that I can sort of think of if in the time that we have remaining, let's have a look at how we can actually apply these in order for us to kind of form healthy habits that that serve us essentially when it comes to our relationship with technology. Now, a really important phrase to always have at the forefront of your mind when it comes to kind of creating this balance with technology is to start small, to change habit. That's exactly the reason why when you saw that screen with all of those tips and tools that we went through, I mentioned, don't feel kind of that you have to implement all of these. And that you need to implement all of these because some might be irrelevant to you as well. But with the ones that you do want to implement, these tips and tools, start small with them as well. And starting small kind of builds a routine, and eventually that will create a habit or be able to change a habit as well. And this always kind of reminds me to a really kind of really useful kind of quote, famous quote, which was said by an author, I believe. And that was that Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. So we want to kind of take small steps in order to kind of get to where we want to get to, in order for us to kind of create that relationship that we want with our technology devices around us as well. Now, I hope that you kind of jotted down some of those tips and tools that we've kind of just gone through and spoken about, because that will really help you when it comes to the kind of this section here, which is I want you to kind of align some of those tips and tools and think back to those goals that we looked at earlier on. Before we went into tips and tools, we kind of looked at what do we want to achieve out of having a better balance of technology. We're looking to kind of spend more family time. We're looking to kind of be more focused at work. What is it that we're looking to kind of get out of this for us? So I want you to kind of align them together. And whilst you're kind of doing that, and feel free to kind of share yours in the chat as well, let's have a look at some examples here. So having higher efficiency at work, that could be somebody's goal. So in order to kind of achieve that, some of the tips and tools include practicing deep work when I'm writing reports, as you can see here. So deep work is where you kind of have a focused period of time where you spend that time solely on a particular task. For example, here, writing reports. And deep work is something which I was actually kind of exposed to when I actually read a book by an American author called Cal Newport. And this is something which actually really helped me with my kind of productivity working as well. So this is where with deep work, and you kind of find this if you kind of read the book or kind of have a look at some of the YouTube videos that exist online about deep work, is where you kind of set yourself certain times in the day where you do deep work, where you block out your diary, you block out your calendar, you put your do not disturb mode on, and that's it. That's you kind of fully focused on a particular task. This might be that you spend 25 minutes doing something, then you have a 5-minute break. You then do another 25 minutes, 5-minute break, another 25 minutes, 5-minute break, and then you do another 25 minutes, and then you have a half an hour break, because that's kind of, or you kind of go into a little bit of a lunch break for an hour. But within those 25 minutes, you're using them for kind of concentrated work. And this also kind of feeds into something else known as the Pomodoro technique, or the tomato timer technique, which is where you are kind of setting yourself a timer. This could even just be through kind of an alarm clock that you've got, or even through your smartphone. you can use it for that one purpose of actually setting a 25-minute timer for just doing work, but then you don't touch your phone afterwards. Maybe flip it over so you can't see the screen either as well. So that's something to consider there as well. So deep work is definitely something to kind of consider and look at. It's definitely something that's been useful and helpful for me. You can use do not disturb, just to very much kind of shut off your devices in order for kind of in terms of kind of notifications that we spoke about earlier on. Disconnect when needed from certain apps to help you focus as well, so you're not and actually kind of that kind of goes into what we spoke about earlier on about maybe setting app limits as well, like time limits with the apps. Another example here, spending more time with my family. How can I achieve that? Being more present with others during meal times as well. So just really kind of being in the moment when we're kind of in conversation with others. Giving the gift of JOMO on your next family holiday, for example. So this is where you've got your boundary set. So you said, yeah, I am away from this date to this date. I will have no access to my emails. Please forward to somebody else if it's urgent. Otherwise, I'll respond upon my return. So you're creating that set, those boundaries, and that is also allowing you to be more present as well. And also implementing screen-free meal times as well with the family. So that could be something as simple as when it comes to dinner time, everybody puts their smartphone in a bowl in another room. And then everybody has dinner, and then afterwards, once everybody's finished dinner, then you can come and collect your phone as well. And that again helps with us being more present, and helps with this example here of the goal of spending more time with family as well. So if you wish to do so, feel free to kind of share your goal, feel free to share your commitment, what you're going to hopefully take away from this webinar session in terms of what you are looking to achieve out of implementing some of these tips and tools. What are you looking to kind of get out of this in terms of finding the right balance for you? Now, in terms of mastering your commitments, you want to kind of be aware of triggers that might kind of lead you down a path where you think, I'm actually spending a little bit too much time scrolling through social media here, or I'm spending a little bit too much time online gaming, or whatever it might be for you that you think isn't quite giving the right sort of value to you as well. So just kind of be aware, try and catch yourself in those moments. And it's easier said than done. But it's something which, again, as I mentioned, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. So we want to kind of take these small steps, which will help us to kind of form healthy habits. And it will get to the point where we'll then regularly be catching ourselves when we're doing something that doesn't necessarily add value to us as well. Find ways to reward ourselves. So if we've done something really well, we've done a task, we've done some deep work, and we've actually smashed out something for the day, then it's like, yeah, brilliant. Let me celebrate. Let me do this. Let me go for a walk. Let me spend 10 minutes video gaming or something like that. Whatever it might be for you as well. You can see here, work hard to change your routine up. And it does take time, as we spoke about as well, because change can be gradual, but we can still also celebrate the small wins, which kind of lends itself back to rewarding ourselves as well. So with that in mind, we've kind of covered in this session kind of the concept of digital well-being. We've reflected upon our usage. What do we mean by that? Where technology kind of provides the most value to us, where it kind of helps us and aids us, but then we've actually identified where we're getting kind of notifications whilst we're reading, which doesn't necessarily serve us. For example, those kind of actions as well. So we've kind of created those distinctions, and then we've kind of gone through some of the tips, some of the tools that can help us to overcome some of those kind of times and experiences where technology doesn't necessarily suit us and kind of takes away value from us as well. And remember, this is something which is gradual. It takes time, but we will all kind of create our own kind of routine, which will then form our own healthy habit. And remember, your digital well-being is different to another person's digital well-being, but hopefully through time, we'll actually create the right digital well-being for ourselves as well. And this is something that we can take on, even further as well. We can actually check in on our digital well-being every so often. We can just diarize this in our calendar and just be like, let me just spend a couple of hours on a weekend just thinking, am I good at digital well-being? Do I need to tweak a few things as well? So that's something to consider. So I can't see any kind of final questions in the live chat. So with that in mind, I'll kind of roll into our next steps. Now, one of our next steps is feel free to kind of check out the Google Digital Garage website to have a look at some of the other fantastic webinar sessions that we run here on YouTube. If you are based in the UK, you can actually also have a look at some of the face-to-face in-person events that we are running up and down the country. So be sure to kind of check in on them. They are available for you to attend at no charge, just like these webinar sessions are available to you to attend at no charge as well. As are the online courses on the Google Digital Garage website, are available for you to complete at no charge. Remember, it's the Fundamentals of Digital Marketing course, which is the course that upon completion you'll actually receive a certificate at no charge as well. So with that in mind, I hope that you found this session useful. If you did, both myself and Benedict would appreciate a little bit of feedback. Got a feedback form link here on screen as well, so be sure to check that out. But apart from that, I want to say a massive thank you to Benedict, whom I'm sure has been a wonderful chat moderator, and thank you all for tuning into this Google Digital Garage webinar session, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you. Bye.